All right, Peacecraft, you've been waiting patiently in the background. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Rob, unfortunately, the moderator was part of your statements in regards to American policy and the morality of such policy was couched somewhat in Christian ethics over the course of the conversation as to where parents or the polity itself ought to have an in-group preference over the preference of others. Even as a bad Christian, this is untrue. I mean, you probably don't deny the existence of Abraham or Lot, who were told to explicitly sacrifice their family for explicitly Christian aims. So even within a Christian paradigm, your statement is untrue. And I would also test your isolationist policy even further. And I have to ask a couple questions in between.
Well, first, I'd like to, if you're...
I'm not. I'm going to continue.
You can continue. We'll see if you're going to continue. I bet I could talk louder and faster than you. I'd like to respond to the first point.
Moderator. You're muted, moderator. You're muted.
I'd like to respond to the first point you made.
Sparky, can I finish my question?
I'd like to respond to the first point you made. You made a point. I would like to respond to it.
Rob, let him finish.
Got to get close to that mic. Aircraft.
Let him finish.
Okay, Rob. Thank you for seeing a period where there was, in fact, a comma, but I had to ask a couple of clarifying ones because I want to give you the best steel-manned position possible. I want to give you the most amount to argue with. Now, I'm not quite as talented as fucking Rob Noerr. I can't talk for an infinite amount of time. So I'll apologize to everybody watching in fucking Crucible Land and finish my question now that I've been graciously fucking allowed to do so. So, Rob, in terms of your foreign policy, you made that statement. Over the course of the earlier part of the debate, you said some pretty heavily handed moral claims about our president, Joseph Robinette Biden. In claims as far as abuse of children, right? I am curious, with your statements on Biden, with your past statements on Epstein, with your past statements of how this is such a condemnable moral evil, would you allocate the American military to stomp this items out? Would you pay increased taxes to stomp this evil out and use an expansionary American military to do so?
Thank you so much for your question, Peacecraft. Now, when people accuse me of gish galloping, the intent behind what they're saying is that I make a lot of arguments and say a lot of things with rapidity and sort of the volume at which I speak. I'll have to give you credit for using a lot of words without saying a fucking thing. Now, you do come across as smug, and no doubt you're someone who's self-important as you're sitting with probably a butt plug in your ass right now, trying to seem like you're somehow intelligent and powerful because you're making demands of the moderator to shield from your own insecurity as you make a point and was trying to rapidly get me to not address the specific point that you made. Yes, it's true that the parable... Oh, are you going to interrupt me or are you going to give me a chance to speak? You've already acknowledged you're not as good as or intelligent as me, so why don't you sit fucking back and learn for a second? Now, when you brought up the parable of Lot, of course there are times when God has specifically spoken to people in both the Old Testament and through his son in the New Testament and asked things specifically of them. That is a different sort of idea than what the traditional person that isn't getting that direct communication from God should get. The idea that it is not a Christian value to look after your own family first and foremost is ludicrous. It is the role of a Christian father and husband to look after their family first and foremost. And the idea of the parable of Lot somehow meaning, oh, actually you should let your wife and child suffer because you need to help your neighbor's kids because Lot was told to do the same thing is nonsensical. Now, as clearly a biblical scholar as you are, and as someone myself is admitting that's not that much of a biblical scholar, it's weird to me that you were unable to pick up on that. But I digress, and we'll go to your second point. Yes, I did talk about the moral shortcomings of Joe Biden and seeing about him sniffing children, seeing of him being accused of sexual assault and odious sexual behavior from women that are across the board. We've also talked about Jeffrey Epstein and things that have occurred with him in the past. I didn't really come up in this. I'm not surprised, though. It seems that you're incapable of understanding the things I'm saying because you're probably some low IQ moron that feels the need to call into shows like this to sound self-important because no one actually watches you or has a bother to listen to you when you're talking and not into sort of platform like this when there's bigger names that you could piggyback off to get your self-confidence up. Nonetheless, I will say this. Absolutely, I think that I would be willing to pay taxes for a military. If part of that military was specifically going after credible accusations of sexual trafficking of children, I wouldn't have a problem with that. That's different than an isolationist policy that is in effect what we see now, which is we have military bases all across the world and we're continually told that we need to intercede in countries like Libya, Syria, etc. that always always ends up being done by people that don't have the interest of the children at heart. These people that are controlling our military-industrial complex seek to exploit these situations for themselves. And what ends up happening is, in the name of saving the noble people of Libya, for example, we actually end up with sex trafficking, not just of adults, but actually minors, and actually open-air slave markets that we now see in Libya, a country that formerly was number one in sub-Saharan Africa for things like literacy and home ownership. So the idea that just because I would accept that we should use military or taxes to go after child sex trafficking in areas where it actually happens is somehow antithetical to or in somehow conflict with my belief that we need to stop these disastrous foreign invasions and protect our own people first is nonsensical.
This is untrue, and I would like everybody watching this to just run it back from when I first called in, other than when he tried to interrupt me. I only asked 2 questions. I only asked 2 of them. One was, do you think that there's really any Christian moral or ethic that supersedes a father's duty to his children or the polity to their in-group? And then the second one was, would you be expansionistic or start a war to stop this moral crime, right? Unfortunately, we got to some weird fucking Gish Gallopy shit about Syria and the military-industrial complex. But even among Jesus alone, Matthew 25, 31, 40, for I was hungry and you gave me food, I was thirsty and you gave me drink, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. Even from the literal Son of God himself, which even though I am pretty agnostic to atheists, both Andrew and Rob would probably take his sources fairly authoritative, Rob ignores it entirely. And in the case of Rob's earlier point in the debate about warships off the coast of fucking Florida or fucking increased conflict between nations, Rob is absolutely happy to throw that all away in terms of his intersubjective shit. He has no consistent moral axiom. So, Rob, there's a common question on the Crucible that I would like you to answer. Everybody gets asked for it, and longtime Crucible members will know it absolutely, right?
Are you about to launch into Papua New Guinea?
Rob, there is a small island in Oceania off the coast of Australia called Papua New Guinea. And I would really like to know your foreign policy prescriptions about Papua New Guinea.
I don't have any foreign policy prescriptions to Papua New Guinea. What I will say is I will take that the one thing you said was absolutely true.
Enough. Hang on, enough on the Papua New Guinea. We can't even do it on the
I would just want to make one quick point. The only true thing he said that was worth mentioning there was he only said 2 questions. Yes, that entire rambling diatribe that he had at first was just making 2 questions, further proving my point that it's a guy that likes to smell his own farts and sound self-important. Really, he wasn't saying jack shit.